When I'm speaking with small to medium electrical and communication contractors, they discuss businesses' challenges like maintaining healthy margins, cash flow, getting proper construction bonding, employee safety and training, and managing change. In addition, many businesses of this size can find themselves plateauing a few years after starting. I've read many business books that describe systems for improving business operations. A few years ago, I read Traction, and frankly, probably another follow-up 5 books about the EOS focus books by an author and consultant and business leader named Gino Wickman. Now, what intrigued me was the practicality of the system. There aren't silver bullets or quick fixes. In fact, it can be kind of hard sometimes to get, to make it truly implement and happen. But the tools in the EOS toolbox have been around for 100+ years. But what's happened is Gino and a lot of smart people or people following him have perfected how to roll out EOS. Now, as I researched the system, I began to see that real companies were successfully putting the tools to work for their businesses. And since I've started this journey, I've met many of the EOS implementers who help small to medium businesses implement EOS, including my guest today, Bruce Sheridan, who answered my question, who is Bruce Sheridan?
I grew up in suburbs of New York City in a really, the most densely populated city in the United States, Union City, New Jersey. It's at the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel. But it was a scrappy town. I mean, I was in probably 600 fights by the time I got out of high school. All of them just like pushing and shoving to, full blown having a fist fight with somebody. So I got out of there, and I don't know how I landed at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia, but I managed to get a degree from Georgia Tech and get recruited to Florida Power & Light in Miami. Spent 9 years there, and the last 7 helping them win the Deming Prize, which really I fell in love with a system for running a business. And so that's what I do. I've been doing that for over 35 years, and I absolutely love it.
Welcome to Keeping the Lights On. I'm your host, Todd Reed, and on this podcast, I connect with the owners and pros who design, build, and maintain our electrical, communications, and industrial world to explore the best ways forward. Before we get into the show, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. Are you looking for innovative solutions that safeguard your systems and ensure top-notch performance? Meet Invent. With an extensive range of electrical connections and systems protection from Caddy, Erico, Hoffman, and Ilsco, Invent delivers resilience and reliability. From power distribution, electrical fastenings, to enclosures, climate control, and high-density liquid cooling for data centers, Invent has your back. Did you know Invent protects over 1 billion electrical connections worldwide? That's right. From critical infrastructure to seamless connectivity, Invent and its product brands are connecting and protecting the electrified future with inventive technology. Visit the link in the show notes to explore the electrifying world of Invent and power up your possibilities. All right, let's get into the show. Talking over a meal can kind of open up doors and kind of relax us, and we can talk about all kinds of things. And so if I or one of the listeners were to visit you in your hometown, where might you take us to eat?
I would say my go-to is the Wolf Cafe. It's it's owned by a husband and wife, and it's really it's organic before organic was popular. I mean, everything is locally sourced by local farms. I buy my honey there.
Oh wow!
The people have beehives on their property, and they bring the bottles of honey, and they're not even commercial bottles; like they're just bottles.
Oh wow!
So I really enjoy the food is fantastic, and I know it's good for me. I brought a colleague there for lunch once, and he goes up and he's like, "I'll have a Coke." And they go, "We don't have Coke." He goes, "Well, I'll take a Pepsi." They said, "We don't have Pepsi." He goes, "Well, what kind of soda do you have?" They said, "We don't sell soda." And he didn't know what to do. So he had to drink water.
Yeah, that's good.
That's amazing. I know. I didn't even realize that until he asked for it. I was like, "Oh my God, that's so funny." But that's how they are. You're gonna get, it's very laid back, authentic, good organic food. That's my favorite go-to.
What do you? This is a 2-part question. One, what's your favorite thing to get there, and are you I always order the same thing kind of person, or I always try something different every time?
I think I can answer that in one answer. Every time I walk up to the register, they just go, "Slinger with no jalapenos." I'm like, "That's it."
Oh my gosh.
So
So they know Bruce.
they know me, and that's the same thing I get every time I go. If I deviate, I'll get the organic chicken on spinach, better spinach with some
Oh,
berries
that's,
and nuts or something.
oh, that sounds good.
But the slinger, I don't know what it is. It's like I think a bean burger that's all busted up and onions and stuff and peppers in the sauce, and then they put 2 eggs over easy on top of that with
Oh, wow.
with sort like cooked pink onions that are cooked. Oh my God, I love it. That's my favorite. I probably order that 9 out of 10 times.
The Wolf Cafe is a family-owned business.
Yeah.
Been in business a while. Which is like many of the electrical and communication contractors that listen to this show, Bruce. We talked about that. Small, and many of them are small to medium size. Yes. And I've worked for several family-owned businesses myself. My wife owns her own business. I know it can be a challenge to get new ideas on ways to improve. How do you improve company performance? How do you improve company culture and financial performance? And you may not even know the questions to ask because you just don't have expertise in, say, finance or something.
Yeah.
But having read several business books, I mentioned this in the intro, I've been super impressed with the EOS series of books written by Gino Wickman and others, other authors. In addition, what really has keyed me in on it is because I've read many business books that are good, but I'm shocked how many number of companies that I hear using the terminology of the books, and then you ask them after you hear them speak, like, are you using EOS? Like, yeah, we either just read the book or have an implementer or whatever level they are, but at some point they've used EOS to some level. So that's pretty impressive because you don't always hear that with books, right? They just have some good ideas, and I don't know. So let's start out real basic, Bruce. Can you briefly explain to the audience, I'm using this abbreviation EOS a lot.
Yeah.
What is EOS and what's its core components?
Sure. EOS, it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Its target is small businesses that are privately held, 10 to 250 employees. So that's our target. And what we do is we work with them to do 3 things that we call vision, traction, and healthy. Okay. We want them to have a very clear vision, and we want the whole organization to get behind that vision. We want them to get traction, and we want them to get traction on a weekly basis. We teach them tools and methodologies where they're making improvements and tweaking everything every week. So you don't come in Monday, work your tail off till Friday, and then think, wow, I didn't work on anything I wanted to work on. We give them a structure where they are working on the business as well as in the business. And then lastly, we want them to be healthy. We want them, unfortunately, and I see this all the time. I've worked with over 50 companies in EOS and then thousands over my career. They're not functioning healthy. There's politics and backbiting and all kinds of chaos. And you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. I mean, it's endless. So we want them to be healthy, functioning healthy. Our goal about 18 to 24 months is they have a clear vision that all the employees are behind it. They know where they're going and they have an idea on how they're going to get there. They're gaining traction by holding people accountable and being responsible and being disciplined. And then finally, they're working together as a healthy, functional team. So then at the end, everybody is moving towards the vision. They're working disciplined and with accountability, and they're having fun, and it's a great environment. The culture's great, people are happy, and the company is just firing on all cylinders. That's the goal.
Okay. So, you've had many companies come up to you, and I know you've talked to a lot of the other implementers and hear stories from their, other perspectives.
Yeah.
What are some of the common problems do companies face that actually lead them to seek out EOS implementation?
So what we see most often, clients will come to us and they're having difficulty growing. One of my clients was stuck at 10 million 3 years in a row. So we have a saying inside EOS, if you're not growing, you're dying. So they come to us where they're just not getting the sales and they're working their tails off. The other thing is profitability. The number one killer of small businesses is they run out of cash. If you don't have the cash flow and you're not making profit, some some of the things I tell my clients is don't get rid of your unprofitable customers. They helped you get moving and they provided like a base revenue, but they're not a good match anymore. So if you can't raise the price and they stick with you, then you may have to look at not keeping them. I think what we see in EOS too is that 80% of the problems revolve around people. There's people that just don't fit your culture. They're in a job where they can't do it well. So our goal is that we get throughout your organization the right people in the right seats. And then I think another thing we see, the leaders are just tired. It feels like nothing's working. They're burning out. They're on that treadmill, and they're like, this isn't what I signed up for. When I started my own business, I had all these great ideas and dreams. That they've built it. Only 4 out of 100 small businesses that start will ever break $1 million in revenue. So they're on this hamster wheel, and they're growing, grinding, and they're burning out. So I think the 4 things are they have difficulty growing. Their margins and profit aren't where they want them to be. 80% of the time they've got people issues, and then finally they're burning out. So those are the most common reasons people will seek out EOS or even an EOS implementer.
Hey, Bruce, I want to talk about difficulty growing. And it seems like when I read a lot of the stories and books about small businesses, it seems like it's 2 to 5 years and a company will plateau. It's very common.
Yeah.
Why do you see companies plateauing and they're growing?
We kind of see a couple things, and we call it hitting the ceiling. Okay. They'll hit that ceiling because they haven't kept up to grow the company. You've got to keep up your processes, your systems, your capabilities. They had clunky processes to get. Think about Amazon for a second, right? When Bezos drove to California with his wife, they were in the garage. They bought like cheap tables and horses, and they would put the tables on the horses, and they were individually packing the boxes by hand and mailing them to people. Do you think Amazon could be the company they were if they had everybody still in their garage loading the boxes by hand? No. It would have never gone anywhere. So you've got to keep up. You got to systemize, get your processes where you want them to go. You need to have your everybody knows what their job is and how they're going to do it. You want to have a clear vision. Where are we trying to go? How are we going to get there?
Gotcha.
So those are all the things that we teach, and solving your problems at the root cause. As they grow and get more complex, they respond to fires, for lack of a better term. Like fires flare up all over the place, and they're running around just stamping them out. And they're not looking at the business. How are we going to get this business to be able to take on twice as much revenue? Do we have that figured out? And that's all part of EOS, figuring out if you're going to grow, what do you need to do? How are you going to shift things around? Where are you going to get the money? There's this difficulty is, how do I hire new people and still keep the wheels on and the business running and not run out of cash? All these things are always in play. And we want people to simplify their businesses and really have the right structure in place for their company. Those are the things that we look at and we help them figure out.
Yeah, it's interesting on the 4th when you talk about leaders feeling burnt out or tired. I just interviewed someone named Anise Kavanaugh who does the intentional energetic presence. It's her philosophy, it's her teaching for business and for leadership of any kind, and that's a big thing. It's helping people from their energy's gone.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Well, it's not uncommon. That company I told you about that was $10 million for 3 years in a row, the owner was working 80 hours a week. And he said, I'm going to sell the company. I said, well, then don't hire me because it's going to take me about 12 to 24 months to turn the ship around. So if you want to sell it, go ahead and sell it. But if you want to wait, your asset might be worth more.
And so, you might sell it for more.
Yeah. So here we are 4 years later. It went from 10 million to 32 million. And he works like 0 to 4 hours a week.
Okay.
He looks 10 years younger.
Well, of course. Oh, yeah. Anyone I see retire and I talk to him a month, 2 months later, I'm not that he's
retired.
Well,
he wasn't doing that 80 hours a week was literally killing him.
Oh no, you can't sustain that. You can do it once in a while, but
oh, it was terrible. I never met him before, but I met him when he was working 80 hours a week, and he looked worn out.
yeah.
And now he's working. He's doing things that he's going to see his mom more often. He bought another company. I said, "You told me you were trying to take it easy. You bought another company." What?
Well, he's got a spare 76 hours to work.
Well, he said, "I used all the things you taught me in EOS, and I flipped it in a year and doubled my money." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. Did you have fun?" He goes, "I loved it."
Say hello to bringing liquid cooling into your data center. Is your data center ready for the next generation of technology? nVent brings you the ultimate data center liquid cooling solution end to end, from the CDU to the manifolds and ultimately the entire technology cooling system. Keep your servers cool and your data flowing effortlessly. With over 1 gigawatt of liquid cooling deployed since 2020, nVent's modular designs are built to scale with your growth. And their advanced liquid cooling technology keeps your hardware performing at its peak. Visit the link in the show notes to upgrade your data center and transform your data center into a powerhouse of innovation. But the reason I reached out to you specifically was that you have worked with an electrical contractor,
yes,
to do some of this. So I guess because that's a big, listener base, and you've worked with companies of all stripes and colors and stuff, so it's you got a wide range. But I know that electrical contractors and communication installers like to hear from people like them. So
absolutely,
when they came to you, I assume, generally they probably had some of these same 4 problems, but is there anything like more specifically towards that business that why they came to you, or what they were struggling with that you're allowed to share?
So the company I worked with here, they were commercial contractors,
Okay.
and they had a decent business. They were East Coast, Midwest, and then some national work too.
Okay.
So when I started with them, they had tried to implement EOS on their own, and they didn't tell me that. So about the 4th or 5th session, they're in the back of the corner laughing, and I'm like, "What are you laughing at?" And they were like, "Oh, nothing." I'm like, "Come on, we built enough relationship." I'm like, "If you don't tell me, we're done for the day. Session's over." They're like, "Oh, wait. Oh, did we ever tell you we tried to do this ourselves?" I'm like, "No, you failed to mention that." And they said, "Well, every time you teach us a tool, we just realize, man, did we mess that up."
Oh.
So it's like, that's pretty funny. And they were laughing pretty hard. But I think the biggest thing to me, the biggest benefit they got was we have a tool we call the accountability chart.
Okay.
And people get so hung up that they want to put their titles on there, and it's like, no, that's an org chart, like president, CEO, chief operating officer, general manager. Like, no, those are gone. What is the right structure for running your contracting business? And it's whiteboard. And I also tell them, make believe you're all fired and you don't have a job. Mm-hmm. How would you design the structure of this company right now? So I don't even if they start saying, "Yeah, well, Bob does," I'm like, no names. We're not talking about Bob. We're talking about what should that seat be doing. And then we're building what we call the accountability chart. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting when we building that. People have clear accountabilities. Everybody knows who's responsible for what. So it's not this guessing game like, "Oh, I thought you were doing it. Oh, I thought you were doing it." Or you both start doing it and then you bang into each other. It's like, and it's so, it relieves so much pressure when people know this is what I'm accountable for, and this is what Sally's accountable for, and this is what Bob's accountable for, and they do it. So part of building that accountability chart is making sure the people you put in the seats are doing their job well. That's one of the other tools we teach, is how to assess how are people doing. You want to make sure they fit your culture and they're doing the job you put them in the seat for. So I think back to your original question, building that accountability chart with them was very, very impactful for that company.
Yeah, that's good. So you it's almost like, kind of get rid of your preconceptions. What jobs need to be done to do the job, that electrical contractor to live or to make a business work. Yeah. And then start saying, well, is Bruce the best person for, where does Bruce fit in? I guess is what you would say, right? You don't even ask like, well, Bruce isn't doing that. Well, okay. But is Bruce better fit there and Todd fit better over here? And I don't know. That's
I
interesting.
think the bigger thing that comes out of it is when you find some people have a personality where they're all over the place. And they're trying to do the jobs like they're going in everybody's sandbox. And when you say, hey, this is your area of responsibility and let those other people do their job, that is amazing, the impact of that. But then it's also impactful when you realize, oh my goodness, this individual is in 3 different boxes. And each box is a 60-hour-a-week job. So unless they can figure out how to work 180 hours a week, they're not going to be effective. And even in a box where they're working 60 hours a week, that shouldn't be the norm. Because having someone in a box where they're working 60 hours a week, they're going to burn out. I know everybody wants to work hard and let's be a hero, but you can't sustain that. It's really going to wear thin. So
I've got to ask a question, Bruce. Not just with this contract you work with, but with many of the companies you work with, that person that is doing 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5 roles, you know, but diving into people's business, I'm guessing most of the time it's the owner?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But it's also all the way down.
Sure.
Like, because it's interesting, right? In my entire career, and I've had my own business like 4 times, and I've also worked in businesses. And it's always like that go-to, like 20% of the employees are the ones you go to because you know they're going to do it. And they're going to do it right and they're going to get it done. So you keep going to those 20%. And they're all the way from the top down. It's like, I think one of the biggest benefits is those people are now going to have other people around them who are going to carry their weight. Because you put metrics in place, you hold people accountable, you tell them what you expect from them. And if they're not meeting it, you have a meeting with them and say, you're not hitting it, you're not getting it. You need to step up your game. And you give them, we call it the 30, 60, 90 tool, where you meet with them 30 days out, 60 days out, 90 days out. And one of 2 things happens. You see significant improvement, or they don't even show up for the 90-day meeting because they quit. So it's rare that you got to get to the end and let somebody go, because you bring concrete examples of what they're doing, and you have to bring 3 concrete examples every time. And then the handwriting's on the wall. If they're not stepping up and doing what they need to do, they know that, they're in trouble. So 9 times out of 10, they'll just leave before the 90 minutes. So you're starting to clean up the company. We call it, you want everybody to fit your culture, and you want them to get it, want it, and have the capacity to do the job on the accountability chart. So those combination of those 2, you're going to wind up with an organization of every, responsible, disciplined, accountable employees, but they're all like that. So you can rely on each other, and the job's going to get done. Okay. And it's going to get done properly.
Well, that gets me thinking about, so company cultures, I used to have a podcast where that's what I focused on. It was a personal passion project of mine before I did this many years ago. But it's still something that's important to me. And so I know that EOS is not necessarily, company culture is not necessarily the specific target of your work.
Right.
However, you've shared insights to me about how it can impact company culture, like you just mentioned one just a second ago.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate how EOS fosters a healthy, open, and trustworthy environment?
Yeah, what we do, we meet, the way we work with a company is in full day sessions. And then the first 3 sessions, we call that like building the foundation. And we never do those again. We move into like once a quarter, we're meeting with the leadership team. But those first 3 sessions are building the foundation. And one of the things we do in there, we will build the first accountability chart they've ever had. And that's where we're trying to get the best structure for running that business, and the boxes or seats, we call it. And then in that seat, you want to put the 5 to 7 accountabilities for that seat that cover 80 to 90% of that job. So you need to be able to check off that they can do those 5 to 7 things really well. But then there's also an exercise in those first 3 days where we spend probably 2 hours really honing in on what are the core values of that company. And no company has the same set of core values. You go in places and they have, integrity, honesty, on the walls. Like, that's what everybody has.
Sure.
And that's okay. I mean, those aren't bad ones, but we really want to dig deep. Like, what truly are your core values? There's no other company in the world the same as yours. So we create your core values, and then we have a tool that we call People Analyzer. And eventually, every single employee in the company will be measured against those core values, and then also against their seat on the accountability chart. So we're looking at the right people, they fit your core values, in the right seats. We look at their seat on the accountability chart and we ask 3 questions. Do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to get that job done?
Okay, so I like what you're saying about core values. We'll go back to that real quick. So if you were working with me and you were saying, well, Todd, what are your core values? I'd be like, well, integrity is important. I kind of started listening. Would you kind of stop me and like, what would you do if I started just saying those?
Well,
obviously I mean it, right? I'm not making it up, but
some people will come in with they say we have core values. So I put those on the board. I'll say, okay, let's leave them up there, but we're going to go through an exercise. And then we go through that whole exercise and we wind up with like 40 of them up there.
Okay.
And then we narrow, like, okay, what are the ones that are really core and those are yours? So some of the ones that they originally put up will still get in. Maybe they come with 5 and we end up with 6 and 2 of the originals are in there, and then we selected 4 new ones. But the whole purpose of the exercise is to really think about what is the culture that we want in this company. And I'm telling them it's a clean slate. This is your company. We're going to make these, the leadership team's making them. I'm not telling them what their core values are. But I take them to an exercise that it's really powerful. I had one client, they had their core values, and we went through the exercise, and the CEO, it was it's an ESOP, so that's not in our sweet spot because they had to answer to a board of directors. But this was the CEO, and he said, "I can't believe you did that." I said, "What did I do?" He goes, "In like 2 hours, you came up with really cool set of core values." You said, "I had to work on that for 6 months to come up with our core values." He goes, "I can't believe you did that." But it's, over 20 years, a lot of smart people have built the EOS system. And I believe our core values exercise is really powerful.
Like maybe give an example of how those things help the company's culture that you've worked with change from kind of maybe the engagement score or whatever the thing you want to measure would have been low, and then after doing this it was high, and why was it higher? Yes.
The engagement score, I think a real good indicator is retention, employee turnover.
Okay.
So, and also one of the things we do is we put everything is so simple in EOS, but it's not easy to do. We have a spreadsheet. You put people's names down the right, and to put the core values across the top. And then with the leadership team, we just say, look, it's either a plus minus, or a minus. So there's a lot of leeway. And then we have them rate themselves. So each leader will rate the other leaders in the room. It's either a plus minus, or minus against that core value. And then that helps us create what we call the bar. So if you have like 5 core values, you could have 3 plus minus and 3 pluses and 2 plus minus. You can't make it plus all across the board. That's just too stringent. So you got to identify what are 2 of the core values that if they're a plus minus, that's going to be okay. So we'll create the bar, and then we go with every single employee in the company, and their people who know them and work for them, like supervisors and managers, will rate them. And then they're either going to be at or above the bar. And then if they're below the bar is when we have a conversation. So you're constantly improving the culture of the company, and it takes time. That's why we say allow, 12, 18, 24 months for this to really take hold. Because as I meet with companies every quarter, they have less and less people that are below the bar. But you can't just wave a wand and say, oh, we're firing 20 people tomorrow because they're below the bar. You can't do that. You'll destroy the company. So it's little, you just keep making progress. And then you want to get to a point where 80 or 90% of your people are at or above the bar. That's a big difference. I had another client that they bought strip centers next to Walmart.
Okay.
And they would buy them in bad shape so they could, get a deal. But they also owned, inside of the same company was a construction company that would go renovate and remodel it. Then there was a whole department responsible for getting it leased. And then there was a whole department responsible for running it. So they'd buy a rundown center, construction crew refurbish it, leasing crew fill it, operating crew run it, and then about, like a 4 or 5 year window, they would sell it when it was at the top. Yep. So they buy it at the bottom, fix it up, run it, sell it, get it fully leased out, run it, and then sell it. So there was a constant cycle of in and out, strip centers coming in and going out. And the guy in charge of getting them leased was the guy who was in everybody else's box.
Okay. Okay.
But people loved him because he would always help them out. And, he's such a great team player and always helping us out. Yeah. So when we did the accountability chart, he toned it down and started to laser focus on the leasing. And then from one quarter to the next, leasing went up 30%.
Wow. Okay.
And we came to the quarterly meeting and he was like, I am on cloud 9. He goes, I focused on what I owned and we kicked butt. And people weren't like mad at me. I thought people would get mad because I wasn't helping them anymore. And the people are like, well, actually kind of happy you're not in our business so much. And it was just like this. It was like everybody was so happy and jovial. Oh, wow. It was like, oh, that was cool. That worked out really well.
That's pretty awesome. Hey, let's go back to that contractor you worked with. How you have an example of how their culture shifted after working with them?
Yes. What became clear, I can't remember how they phrased it, but they would say, all roads lead to the owner. It's kind of the joke. And so what we did when we did the accountability chart, he was the visionary, he was sales, and he was HR. Okay. So this was when they graduated, they were at $60 million.
Oh, wow.
So, but what happened was the very first hire he made was HR. So that seat completely he didn't have to worry about anymore. Then the next thing he moved over to the sales seat and he took 2 people to replace him.
Yeah.
And then he was starting to focus on the visionary seat, which people, because he was spread so thin, and remember, this is an example, like it could have taken 60 hours in each one of those boxes. Impossible. He can't do 180. So when he was working on one, the other 2 were suffering. So the whole company they were so thrilled when they would come back for quarterly meetings and just saying, he's really staying in his lane. And he said, I'm liking it. I'm not as stressed out. Mm-hmm. People aren't screaming and relying on me. I'm doing what I love. And then the people that he hired were kicking butt. So it just lifted the whole company, and then it made him available a lot more. So he was doing a 60-hour job instead of 180 hours of job.
Yeah, okay, that's a great example from that contractor. Let's stick to them for a second. Why do you think contractors could benefit from implementing EOS in their operations?
Well, I think we touched on a bunch already. If they're wanting to grow, I've got anywhere from 100% to 200 to 300% growth in revenue over the 2 or 3 years that we work with them. And I've had them increase, growing the revenue is going to increase your profit, but also increase the margin. So when you get more organized and you're running things more smoothly, there's less rework and going backwards, so the margins increase. Customer satisfaction and customer retention goes up. employee retention goes up. Just people feeling good because of everything we just talked about with accountability and people doing what they're supposed to be doing in their box and then working on processes. One of the biggest hiccups are people, and I've seen this. You go and ask somebody like, how do you do your job? And they pull out some ratty piece of paper that's got marks all over it. And then, this is how I do it. I'm like, well, what's the process? I don't know. It's in a book somewhere. I don't know what it is, but this is how I do it. So then if there's 10 people, are they all doing it differently? So we want to get processes buttoned up. We want the processes to be simplified and, cut out wastes and wasted time. So you want to get your processes simplified, documented, and having everybody follow them. That's another big plus for them. Then the next one is when things pop up, and I mean, back in my days at some of my companies, I used to have like a construction hat and a fireman's hat. Like you could buy them at the party store, right? You get little plastic ones.
Yeah.
And I'd put them all out all over the table. And I go, are you a builder or are you a firefighter? And, they laugh about it, but some people just run around all day putting out the fires. As you implement EOS, you have less and less and less and less fires. And then you're actually building. So you're building this company, and you're building a great company. Most of the companies that go in, they're decent. But with EOS, you can really take it from good to great. That's what we the very first book we recommend they read when they get started in the EOS working with an implementer is Good to Great.
Yeah.
We also ask them to keep metrics and really measure progress on a lot of companies I start with is profit and revenue. Well, those are lagging. Those are outputs. If you're not doing what you need to be doing, you get to 6 months. If you're looking at a monthly number, it's 6 weeks. From the start of the month till the time you get your books done is like 6 weeks. And then you're looking at a number and you're like, oh, it's bad. Oh, well, we just went 6 weeks with bad activity. And so we want to know, what can I measure almost daily or weekly that's telling me, am I doing what I need to do to get the results I need to get? So we build really powerful scorecards at the leadership team, at the department levels, even at the team levels. We want them to have good metrics that are giving them valuable information on how things are running. So that's also something that they'll get as an outcome. So those are the things,
Okay.
Profit margins, buttoned up processes, solving problems at the root cause.
Well, so construction is very much a process, driven kind of a business as a contractor, right? You've got things to do that are very table stakes or whatever you want to call them.
And most of them they're not identical jobs, but it's similar. Like ordering switches, pulling wire, putting all the components together. It's very unique each job, but the type of work is similar.
Right.
How do you nail that and really do it well?
So for listeners, they're interested. EOS sounds like they're like, this is intriguing. What initial steps would you recommend they take to explore, EOS potential for their business?
Absolutely. The EOS, well, if you go to eosworldwide.com, you could spend a whole lifetime on that website.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information there.
We have an abundance mindset, and we will give you the whole kit and caboodle. It's yours. Because we know we estimate 300,000 people are hitting our website. We've got 900 implementers around the world in 40 countries, and we've helped, I think we're over 27,000 companies that have hired an implementer. So it's a 10X for people that are searching and looking for materials on our website. We think there's 300,000 or 400,000 people hitting our website. So there's a ton of information out there. The two books we recommend if you're starting out is the big dog is the book Traction by Gino Wickman.
Okay.
And then one of the very first implementers, Mike Payton and Gino Wickman, they wrote Get a Grip, which is a fable, but it teaches you the exact same stuff as traction.
Okay.
So if you don't mind reading a book that's like, here's how you do it, buy Traction. If you want to have a story with characters, but that story is still going to teach you the same stuff, Get a Grip. So it's your preference.
Okay.
But reading those is a great way to start. We recommend, of course, I mean, this is almost ridiculous, but we recommend hiring an EOS implementer.
Okay.
Because I am one? No. But among ourselves, we talk about, like, I was on the track team in college and I had a coach. And without the coach, man, if somebody just said, hey, welcome to the track team, have a good time, and there was no coach, I would have missed half the practices, goofed around. So we say that we're teachers, facilitators, and coaches. And the other analogy we use is, if you were going to climb Mount Everest, you're going to hire a guide. I don't think anyone in their right mind would attempt to climb Mount Everest without a guide. So it's like having a guide, having a coach. And I love the analogy of a coach, because a coach is not in the game. I'm outside watching you play the game, and I'm going to be, hey, you know, when you did that, it wasn't good, and here's what happened, and I saw it, so you might want to change how you do that. But when you're in the game, you can't see all that. You're playing the game and you're in it. So we have a very large toolbox. We teach you all those tools, and we know we have a prescribed time when we introduce the tools. But with my experience, if I see, you know what, they need that tool today, I'm not waiting 8 months. I'm teaching it to you today, because I know it's going to help you. I've had a couple companies tell me, we have one tool is called cash flow drivers. And I've had two owners, one with tears in his eyes, tell me, the timing of you doing that cash flow driver saved our business. And one of them told me that tearing up. And it's just, that is such I get fulfilled by helping. Well, I started when I was 24, helping Florida Power and Light go from the basement to one of the top electric utilities. I just love it. It's so rewarding to help a company be better and thrive. There's people that work there, their incomes, even their well-being, when you get the culture right and they're in a job that they love. There's so many positives that come out of it. So I plan on doing it till I can't stand up or talk anymore.
I like to close the question with refocusing on the why of what we do.
Yes.
So what motivates you to do this day in and day out? What keeps you excited and passionate about what you do?
That's pretty easy. I think I touched base. I came out of school, went to work for Florida Power and Light, been there 2 years, loving my job. And our CEO went to Japan and saw what they did at Kansai Electric. They had meter reading teams that had like 16, 17 misread meters per million. And our average teams were like somewhere between 10 and 20,000 misread meters per million. So the CEO came back, he goes, we're doing this. Yeah. So I get called up to like the number 5 guy in the company in Miami. I'm 24 years old. And he goes, he tells my boss, he interviews me on a Friday, which I didn't want to go to. He calls my boss before I even get back to the office and says, I want him here Monday at 8 o'clock.
Oh, geez.
So I come back to work and she goes, you need to go down, you're reporting the clock on Monday. And I'm like, I quit. She's like, you can't quit, you idiot. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. So I go down there Monday. I'm 24 years old, sitting with his whole leadership team. And I don't know what the heck they're talking about. And at the end of the meeting, Clark brings me into his office. He goes, what'd you think? I said, Clark, I'm really struggling. I don't know what you guys talked about for 3 hours. And I don't know how I can help you. You all have 30, 40 years of experience. Like, what am I doing here? He goes, well, Marshall went to Japan and he saw this meter reading team and he wants us all to do this stuff. And I go, well, I got bad news for you. I don't know what the heck the Japanese are doing. He goes, well, don't worry. We're going to teach you. So a Japanese counselor came and taught me like 16 hours a day for 2 weeks in a row.
Oh,
and
wow.
Over 7 years, I was bringing that back to the leadership team. And we became one of the best utilities in the country. We won the Deming Prize in 1989. we were so successful that so many people came. The Public Service Commission said you can't be charging people for consulting. So that was the first subsidiary that Florida Power Light started. And within months, it was a $38 million consulting company.
Oh, dang.
That was the kind of demand for what we were doing. So I fell in love with this whole thing of having an operating system. And everything that I described in EOS is the same stuff. These tools have been around 100 years. They're not new. They're not silver bullets. These tools have been around for 100 years. So my whole career has been wherever I've been, either in my own company that I've started or in working for businesses, doing the same kind of work, building, helping them become a better company. And I absolutely love it. And I'm, like I mentioned to you, I'm doing it till I can't stand up and talk anymore. So
that's great.
I love helping businesses.
Yeah, you have a great enthusiasm, and I know that's going to come out to the listeners. And I appreciate you sharing ideas. And I'm going to encourage people to go click to your website and EOS and tap into all that information. Everybody, it's really good. And like you said, abundance. Start reading it, start trying and thinking, and then reach out to those implementers to see what's going on.
Absolutely.
Bruce, thank you so much for being here. It's been great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Todd.
And that was my conversation with Bruce Sheridan, certified EOS implementer. You can connect with Bruce and what he is working on by heading to the links in the show notes. Hey, I would love to hear if you've implemented EOS, plan to, or you've worked with another business system that has helped improve your business. You can email me at podcast@graybar.com or leave a comment in YouTube or Spotify or in the LinkedIn comments. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can definitely help us grow by commenting, by subscribing, and by leaving a high 5-star best rating possible in your favorite podcast player and or YouTube. Thanks for listening to this episode of Keeping the Lights On. We'll see you next time. All right, what advice would you give to 18-year-old Bruce?
18-year-old Bruce, I would tell him to be his authentic self.
Okay.
Because I think it's really hard to remember what it's like to be a teenager, but it wasn't fun. It was, like, was I cool enough? Was I doing the right thing? Was I saying the right thing? Did I hang out with the right people? Just be your authentic self. And it's so much easier. You don't have to remember the facade you're trying to put on. You just be yourself.